also moved Atlas out into the yard and we're going to be working with the pad some more. I like that he wants to come up and investigate it on his own. That's a really good sign. He's usually not a very brave horse, so I definitely want to reinforce him for doing that. Even though I didn't ask him to do that, that's totally fine. Anything that he has thought is scary, and he wants to touch it on his own or investigate it on his own, I'm going to let him do that and I'm going to reinforce him a little bit. And then eventually I'll just ask him to go do something else because that's not the behavior I want. I'm just going to ask him to come touch his cone, and he comes away from it and does that, so that's very nice. So he is more comfortable out in the yard putting the pad on than he is using protected contact, because right now the protected contact that I have is just a round pen panel, and you saw in the last video how that makes him a little bit more nervous. For some horses, it's definitely the opposite effect. Usually makes them a little bit more confident, but for him, it was making him more nervous. So I do want to switch and toggle between the two. So I'm waiting again for him to touch his cone. Then I've got my pad on. I'm going to click while it's on and then pull it off. So now I can really work on pulling the pad off, and having it on the ground and getting him used to that process where it's falling off, it's on the ground, it looks different. So I'll put it on. About 7 seconds there. That was the other thing that I didn't do right in this process. Was the last video we were up to like 12 seconds, I believe. So, and he was remaining calm, so there was really no need for me to go back to like 7 or 8 here, so I should have just continued with 12, and continued on that process, because he was already okay with it. I was just kind of like, oh well, I don't know if he's 100% comfortable, and he looks comfortable enough. He looks very comfortable here, um, to move on to having more time. So that's one thing that I do struggle with, and I need to be more systematic about for myself. So I'm like, okay, well, he's doing this amount of time, he looks good, so I can move on, do this and do this and do this, and instead of focusing too much on having it like absolutely perfect. Because watching this video back, it for me, it looks pretty much perfect. I'm not sure why it didn't at the time, because I love his body language here. He's nice and relaxed, his head and neck is level. Um, he's much more willing to touch that cone. He's not tight at all, so this just looks so much better than the last video. I love how he's keeping his head low while I bring that pad up. It looks great. So I'm not sure what why I thought that it wasn't quite good enough. So we do work on this a little bit more. I'm going to fast forward and show you pieces of this. So I just want to talk about one thing here real quick. Um, Even though we're kind of doing the same thing, I have moved the pad up, so I do like that he's remaining calm with it pretty close to his face. I also, what I want to talk about is pulling the pad off in different locations. So at this point, like I pulled it forward so it's in front of his front feet, and he's cool with it moving, and he's actually like wanting to keep his head down. That's a big thing for Alice, was having that pad move around, and he stayed there and he kept his head and neck relaxed. And then this time I'm going to put it back behind him a little bit more, but that's important to do too. So you want to make sure that the pad can come off and land in different ways. So underneath the horse, in front of the horse, behind the horse, off to different sides. Like soon here, we'll be pushing it off the other side of him. So different locations behind the horse. You can never, like, unfortunately, like there, it kind of touched his hind leg and then he kind of lifted it up. So he's kind of sensitive on those hind legs. He doesn't like things touching them. So that's another thing that we want to work on. But that's a good example. We don't want something to happen and the pad comes off, I come off, Sal comes off, whatever, and it touches his back legs and scares him. You don't want him kicking out or being more scared than he is. So the end right there. So same thing, better, less reaction there. So it did touch his hind leg and he just kind of rested that toe, versus that last time he really brought that foot up. So this is just another thing that we're working on, is making sure he's cool with this coming off different places, and specifically with those hind feet. I want it touching those hind feet. So that time I didn't have a reaction. From this angle, I don't know if it actually touched him or not, but he didn't have a reaction for the pad being there, so that was also good. Waiting for his cue, or his cone, for him to cue me with his cone. And I like that it's over his hindquarters. I can maneuver it if it's not perfect on there, so this looks really nice. So then I brought out my little bear here. So I just got one of those big like Valentine's bears, and I just have like some twine tied around him so that I can grab him on and off a little bit easier. Because I do want like the arms to move and the legs to move, so I could hold on to one, but I just put some twine on him so I can maneuver him a little bit easier. So right now I'm just kind of pulling him away and having Atlas follow him, and wanting Atlas to touch him or just like be interested in him in any way, and he's being reinforced for that. So I like that he's interested. He doesn't seem super worried. He really wants to touch the bear and look at him, so that's good. I'm going to cue him to come up here and touch his cone. So that's also very good. I don't want him to just be stuck on and be like, well, I'm touching this object and not listen to anything else. So, and now we're going to start introducing the bear to him. So same kind of process. He does his start button and then I bring the bear up to him and he remains calm and I'm going to click and reinforce. So I like the bear is just another step toward having a rider on his back. It's very similar. Obviously, the bear is much smaller than me, but it's pretty close. It's got arms, it's got legs, it moves around, flops around. It's just a good thing to have. Or like a dummy, that kind of a thing. I've used like pool noodle dummies in the past, or you can buy different ones, but I like this bear. Like you can get one at Walmart after Valentine's Day and get one on clearance. That's what I did, and it wasn't very expensive. So it's just another good tool to have for desensitizing. So I'm just going to slowly bring that bear closer. As long as he's remaining relaxed, I'm going to click and reinforce. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'm going to build up, just like with the saddle pad and everything else, to where eventually the bear can go all the way on his back. He can walk around with the bear can fall off behind, the side, whatever, and he's totally comfortable with that. So, and it gives me a very good idea of how he's going to be under saddle when I actually ride him. So, I set him to the cone. I'm going to reinforce him for that, for changing direction and then I'll bring up the bear. He looks great. I love where his neck was at. He looks really relaxed. His ears weren't stuck backward. He didn't look tight at all. So this is very, very nice. Again, his neck looks great there. He doesn't seem very concerned about the bear at all. I mean, each horse is going to be different. I really thought he was going to be more worried about it, but he really isn't. So I just kind of show him the bear, I bring it closer to his shoulder, and then I start just bringing it slightly higher every time to eventually I can toss it up on his back just like I did the saddle pad. So there. I love his head and neck there. Like I'm bringing it up and he's just like, doesn't matter. He's not lifting up, he's not getting tight. So that is perfect. I love the same thing with the cone. When he touches his start button, he just slowly brings his head back up. Those are all really good cues for you to see how the horse is feeling about it. So if he was bringing that head up really quickly, um, he might be tense. And the same thing here, I'm asking him to leave and he wants to stay. That's really great information for me that he's enjoying what he's doing.